I'm Nick Westergaard, and this is On Brand, helping you tell your story. My guest this week is Amrita Muthur.
As a marketer, in order to truly drive a lot of growth, we marketers desperately need great creative. And I don't say that lightly. It's not okay creative. It's not good enough creative. It's not even good creative. It's great creative.
When Amrita Muthur joined Superside as their first marketing hire in 2019, there was no product, no platform, and no recurring revenue. No stranger to being called in when companies are at a strategic inflection point with their growth strategy, she did what she spent a career in B2B marketing learning how to do. Implemented a marketing-led growth strategy that translated into $8 million in subscription revenue in the first year and 400,000% year-over-year growth since then. Now as VP of Marketing, her team is revolutionizing design at scale for ambitious brands like Amazon, Meta, Shopify, and Coinbase. My interview with Amrita Muthur is coming right up. But first, as a business-to-business marketer, your needs are unique. B2B buying cycles are long and your customers face incredibly complex decisions. Isn't it time you had a marketing platform built specifically for you? LinkedIn ads empower marketers with solutions for you and your customers. LinkedIn ads allow you to build the right relationships, drive results, and reach your customers in a respectful manner. On LinkedIn, you'll have access to and build relationships with decision makers. Of the 875 million users on the network, 180 million are senior level executives, 10 million are C-level executives. You'll also be able to drive results with targeting and measurement tools built specifically for B2B. And they work. Audiences exposed to brand messages on LinkedIn are 6 times more likely to convert. LinkedIn Ads is also ranked number 1 for security, community, and ad experience as part of Business Insider's Digital Trust Study. Make B2B marketing everything it can be and get a $100 credit on your next campaign. Go to linkedin.com/MPN to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/MPN. Terms and conditions apply.
Hey, it's Jason with the Marketing Podcast Network. You have less than 1 month left to get special early bird pricing for the Creator Economy Expo 2023. This event, folks, is for content creators and entrepreneurs interested in building and growing their content-first businesses. Do not miss this show. Join over 500 bloggers, podcasters, authors, newsletter writers, speakers, consultants, and freelancers at the learning and networking event for content creators. Plan to attend May 1st through the 3rd in Cleveland, Ohio. Register now to secure early bird pricing before it disappears March 31st. Early bird pricing ends March 31st. As a special offer, you can get $100 off just for listening to MPN shows like this one. Go to cex.events to register. Use the coupon code MPN100. The address, the URL, cex.events. That's the whole thing. Type that into your browser. cex.events. The code you use, MPN100. The Creator Economy Expo, Cleveland, May 1st through the 3rd. See you there.
Amrita, welcome to On Brand.
Thank you for having me.
I am excited to chat. I always love it when a bio tells a story instead of just saying, then the person went here, then they did this, then they did this, then they did this. It is this, I love that point of no product, no platform. Though I would think you have to be the right kind of personality. That sounds a little scary.
It was. And you know what? I think, so just for clarity, I'd never worked for an early stage startup before. I never joined a company that kind of hadn't already gotten to some level of product market fit. Every company I've ever joined, they've always been like, okay, we've got something here. We've cracked the segment or whatever. Now it's grow that, maybe launch a new product. Let's find other segments, right? But this was hey, we have kind of nothing. Can you help us figure it out? So it was scary. But at that point in my career, I had very little to lose. And I kind of wanted, the proverbial seat at the table. I really just wanted to drive a lot of the big decisions, which in marketing, strangely enough, even if you're high up in the food chain, sometimes it just stuff is just out of your hands. Like someone else has made that decision and you just have to run with it. And I just didn't want that anymore.
Yeah, that is cool. And when missing those things, product, platform, recurring revenue, those little things, what is your first move in coming there with what is ultimately, like you said, without any of those big things and with a seat at the table? What is what is the first thing from a marketing perspective that you got started with?
Yeah, no, I mean, this is probably true for every startup, but I'd say like the absolute first thing was figuring out what do we want to be when we grow up? Like, what is it that we actually want? Maybe we don't get there, right? But what does good look like? Like, we should have a vision for what that looks like. So the founders already had a pretty good idea about that, which is great, right? So we had a good jumping off point, was able to help them refine that a little bit. And then the first order of business for me was figuring out, does anyone give a rat's ass? Sorry if that's
Oh,
is there a customer for this thing? Who is that customer if there is one? Can we find them in droves? Is the market size large enough that there's a business here, et cetera, right? So we had some early hypotheses, some early hunches, but now I needed to go out and validate it and figure out who these people were. So that's sort of what I did. The one huge advantage I had, I'd say, is, and this is, everyone should always take care of, like, jump on every advantage they have in this situation, right? And the one big one that I had was, I knew that this was a pain, like this product would solve a pain that I've had in the past. So I knew there was other people like me in my network, right? Or in my extended network. And I started there. I started doing a ton of qualitative interviews with people in similar roles as me, trying to ask them, hey, is this a pain that you have? How do you interpret that pain? Do you feel like you're the person to solve that, or is that someone else? And then what does that look like? And through those interviews, I think I did something like 57 in the first couple of weeks. Through that, it started becoming clear what the buyer personas might look like. We kind of had this like bucketized framework where we said, okay, here are people that will probably buy from us. Then here's people that will probably buy from us, but they're more like influencers. They won't make the actual decision because they don't feel the pain themselves. It's someone else's problem. And then here's a group that might actually block this. So these are people we need to stay the hell away from. And that's important to know, right? Because I've been in companies where you've kind of like invariably gone after the wrong people, and they actually work behind the scenes in the background, and you won't even know that they're actually blocking entire deals and whatnot because they feel threatened. Maybe their job is at stake, so on and so forth. So much technology out there actually kind of comes with, creates that fear in people, like, oh my God, there's a sales enablement tool. Is my sales enablement job at risk now if I use this tool? Like stuff like that. So it's
right.
important to know who not to go after, at least not too soon. Eventually you can turn them into allies, but not in the early stages. That's where we started. We had a good hypothesis based on this qualitative data gathering we had done. And then we set out to essentially, to dumb it down a little, like build a website, come up with some value props that explained what we did and why you should care. And we, my boss, the CEO, told me he's actually really good with stuff like this, but he said very clearly, I don't care about revenue right now. What I care is your velocity of learning. He was like, do what you need to do to learn like really, really fast. So that basically gave me permission to just like dump a ton of money into getting this stuff in front of people, in front of these buyer personas. And so our first channel strategy was paid media, and very much focused on Instagram and Facebook in the early days. That my hunch was that would work out really well as compared to search, and that panned out.
Yeah, I love that idea of, I don't care about revenue. I care about your velocity of learning. What a great thing to hear from someone from someone in a leadership position when you're thinking about all of this at this very exciting time as well.
Mm-hmm.
You talked about a lot of interesting things that you learned, and I think, and I'm sure that there was some role for quantitative research, but I really was struck by what you were able to learn from the qualitative aspect of that. It seemed like, especially that point of, we spend so much time talking about the ideal buyer personas, as we should, but I think it's also another important input, as you said, the people that are the hell no, and that could proactively block something too. That's an important bit of information to have in your back pocket as well.
Yeah, yeah, and it affects your messaging, right? It's like some one way or another, someone's going to chance upon your site, your ad, whatever it is, and you don't want to put them on guard. So if you can actively message in a way that's non-threatening to that particular, whether it's a buyer persona, ICP, whatever your company calls it, that just puts you ahead because it's at least the first baby step of bringing them on site. It might take a while, but it's at least the first step.
I want to talk a bit about Superside for a bit, because I realize we jumped in with both feet into the interesting story of your arrival there, and all of this exciting growth. But it's also interesting because I feel like the other thing happening around, in marketing right now, is certainly all of our different digital channels, but I think it's created new design needs, and added even more design bandwidth
Mm,
needs overall in organizations. So, uh,
100%.
so how do you where does Superside come into to kind of that new reality of marketing design?
Yeah, that's such a great question. And, you know, I- I'll just, not to be disrespectful to any marketer out there, but it's crazy how few people understand this. I'm always shocked. So maybe before I explain Superside, maybe I'll just level set on what's actually going on. So it's a tough market. In fact, I'd say in theory, it always has been. I think the last couple of years of the boom has been a little bit fake, right? And so some things just like moved faster, and like every company looked like super successful because it's like, oh my God, I'm closing all these deals and there's all this stuff going on in crypto. And so that's not necessarily reality. So, and now we're in this like market, which is like a bit of a level set. What I realized after years of struggle is that as a marketer, in order to truly drive like a lot of growth, we marketers desperately need great creative. And I don't say that lightly. It's not okay creative. It's not good enough creative. It's not even good creative. It's great creative. It just has so many compounding effects across a bunch of stuff. Like, obviously it helps you to build audiences, inspire them, do a little bit of edutainment, education, and entertainment. But more importantly, helps you tighten up those test and learn loops, like we spoke about earlier, and ultimately helps you crack sort of those new channels and tactics. And I'd say like I'm a bit more like of a grown up marketer now, and I feel like I didn't really come to this conclusion until like much recently, like myself, um, and I think people are just missing the fact that in this day and age, standing out and differentiation is everything. I mean, I think CPG companies, like a lot of the folks that you've interviewed on your podcast, get this right at their core. Like it's about standing out, it's about differentiation, particularly if you're in B2C. But I feel like weirdly in B2B, this is not the norm. That people don't think like this. And good or great creative can actually like make all the difference when it comes to everything from performance marketing to your website to your content marketing to your social, every channel, every form of marketing that you do. So Superside fits in the sense that we've kind of innovated on this age old idea of like, hey, you need a lot of great creative, but it's not just about the quality, it's also about the speed, price, and reliability aspect of that. And we've come at it from this like efficiency angle. We've said that unlike all of the stuff that agencies and freelancer marketplaces, and frankly, just freelancers themselves can provide. Like, they have a place in this world for sure. But if you want efficiency at its core, and you want to get stuff done, like high volume, high velocity creative out the door to power all your channels, like, let me just give you a couple of examples. Like, it could be, hey, our company's trying to crack TikTok. Okay, great. You know what? You can't crack TikTok unless you have like one video, maybe like 3 to 4 videos at minimum per week to try to test and learn that and kind of build on that. Similar goes to, and I don't mean from an advertising lens, just like organic TikTok. Like, you need a lot of volume to figure out what's going to stick and what your whole sort of, strategy is going to be. And there's tons of other tactics like this, right? So if you need that volume and velocity of creative, and you need it to be high quality, and you can spend a fortune on it because then it becomes inaccessible to the rest of the world, what are you going to do? And so Superside's here to solve that specific problem. We've given internal teams, like marketing teams and creative teams, the best of what agencies and freelancer marketplaces offer, but minus the inconvenience and unreliability and the costs that come with it.
On Brand will be right back after this. As a business-to-business marketer, your needs are unique. B2B buying cycles are long and your customers face incredibly complex decisions. Isn't it time you had a marketing platform built specifically for you? LinkedIn ads empower marketers with solutions for you and your customers. LinkedIn ads allow you to build the right relationships, drive results, and reach your customers in a respectful manner. On LinkedIn, you'll have access to and build relationships with decision makers. Of the 875 million users on the network, 180 million are senior level executives, 10 million are C-level executives. You'll also be able to drive results with targeting and measurement tools built specifically for B2B. And they work. Audiences exposed to brand messages on LinkedIn are 6 times more likely to convert. LinkedIn ads is also ranked number 1 for security, community, and ad experience as part of Business Insider's Digital Trust Study. Make B2B marketing everything it can be and get a $100 credit on your next campaign. Go to linkedin.com/MPN to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/MPN. Terms and conditions apply.
Hey there, it's Jason Falls. If your company or maybe one of your clients sells to marketers, you look for advertising channels that guarantee business marketers are paying attention, right? Let me introduce you to the Marketing Podcast Network. You're listening to it right now. It's a network of podcasts all about marketing. So 100% of MPN's audience are marketers. Reach them by advertising on the Marketing Podcast Network. Learn more and find our media kit at marketingpodcasts.net.
Now, back to the show. You've made some really, really good points about both the creative needs today with especially the B2B space. And in talking about, kind of circling back to what you said earlier of it's you can't just have good creative, it has to be great creative. And you talked about the disconnect that's sometimes there when it comes to B2B marketers. What is great creative? There's a big question. What is great creative when it comes to the B2B space? Because again, I think when it comes to B2C, CPG, I know what that is, but it's a little bit different when it comes to a somewhat leery B2B audience.
Mm, mm. Yeah. No, I see that. I think that like the default response to that would be, hey, everyone's human. We should all be, our marketing should be human, right? Blah, blah,
Yes.
blah. Like we've heard that. It was like, okay, yeah, sure, we get it. But it's very different when you're spending your money versus someone else's money, right? That's the difference between B2C and B2B. So I get that. I think that B2B marketers have historically relied on a lot of other ways to build a brand and to do what I would just colloquially call demand creation, where maybe there's not like a innate or urgent compelling event or need or desire, to solve a problem. You kind of have to educate people like, oh, hey, there's a better way of doing this. And that's kind of like what Superside's doing, right? Like there are solutions out there solving these problems to some degree, but we're saying, hey, there's a better way to do it. And we have to create that demand. So I think a lot of B2B marketers have relied on other ways to do that and haven't had the same almost like ammunition, as B2C companies that at their core get that creative is one of the key levers and drivers. Like if I bet you, like if Coca-Cola is launching vitamin water in Brazil, like they're not using the exact same creative as they used in Poland, right? Like they're changing that up, they're testing that, and that whole cycle, that whole planning cycle is probably like a year or 2 years long. They probably create all brand new creative for their ads, their billboards, their influencer strategy. And it's just for some reason, I think because of scale issues, B2B marketers have just never gotten there or never relied on creative to do that. But I feel like we ourselves at Superside have proven this incorrectly. I mean, our growth suggests, which is like very much creative at the center, our growth suggests that this can work. And we've seen a lot of our own customers. I mean, I could pull out so many examples of our customers, but they themselves have seen that in their growth strategy. They've been able to stand out. They've been able to differentiate. They've been able to kind of create this amazing aura and halo effect. And they've been able to create demand where they thought they had none.
Well, and it seems like a true marriage of the concepts of message and media, which, like you said, I feel like in recent years, our default is, and especially with the example of the media you mentioned, we need to do a TikTok thing instead of thinking about what the creative is that makes up the TikTok thing that would is part of some sort of strategy as well that's going to help your brand accomplish your unique goals. But again, it seems like some of these are, there's an awareness out there, but some of these ideas are seems like more fragmented than they should be.
That's a good observation. Yeah, fragmented is a great word to explain it. Actually, it's almost like we get it for some areas of
Yeah.
marketing, but not the other areas.
Uh-huh. Yeah. And that can make the work of the smart marketer in the trenches that much harder because there's aspects that are understood, but not necessarily how this goes with that. So, I mean, one of the many ways that the work today has changed from what it was.
Yeah, the worst is when you see like something, let's say on social, and you're like, oh my God, haha, this was so funny, or this was great, or whatever, right? And then you click through to their website and it's like the worst experience in the world. And it's like you just like hit the X button and you're out of there and you're never gonna go back. So it's like such a lost opportunity, but also it's like you've now created a negative impression, even though your actual offsite strategy was amazing.
Right, right. Oh, yeah. Again, sort of the fragmentation there. So, at the risk of sounding like a Superside ad, but I think it's an intriguing concept, and in and of itself, as you just kind of plotted out, sits between agencies, freelancers, and sometimes that it's great, it's blue ocean, it's different, but it can be hard to actually describe what this is and how this works. So, how have you approached that?
How we have approached
Explaining the service, what it is, how it
right,
works, how Superside works. Is
right.
it, do I send something away? Am I working with a person? Which, when it's between freelancers, which are kind of like special agents, you send them the info and they'll get it back to you. Agencies where there's a lot of high touch hand holding along the way. What does And then of course all the online things we think of are like, okay, it's like Fiverr logos or something.
Yeah.
So where in the spectrum of, of all of the different pieces of marketing design, how do you I guess position Superside?
Yeah, that's such a great question. And I will admit that it's not been an easy journey for us, right? we've had to kind of carve out our own space, because it's very easy to confuse us with an agency, very easy to confuse us with like a Fiverr or 99 Designs, like a
Right.
marketplace where, in fact, like I listen to a lot of our sales calls, right? And people will be like, so how do you connect me with the designers, and can I choose? And it's like, dude, you don't get connected. It's a managed service. Anyway, like I digress, but my point is like, it's just like everyone needs a frame of reference, right? Everyone's trying to
Right.
put you in a box, which is appropriate. I get it. The brain operates like that. So they're trying to like put you in a box of like a framework that they already understand, a notion that they already understand. And it's our job to say, no, 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 yeah, some overlap here, but we're not like an agency. We're not a freelancer marketplace. We're not a, recruiting. Some people even think we're like some kind of recruiting solution. Like we'll go out and find some talent. And that suggests that, one, our messaging is not the best, and two, that there's just like such a variety of solutions out there that we kind of need to combat and go toe to toe with all of them at the same time, which is a hard problem to solve. So, more recently, as of 3 to 4 months ago, we decided, hey, we actually need to give people the words. They need to have a term that they can say, this is what Superside is. And it's also a term that hopefully has I'm looking for the words here, but kind of like has like it kind of has like a feeling of familiarity, and it has like resonance automatically. Those were our criteria. We said we absolutely, whether or not we want to go out and create a category, separate issue, but we need a term. We need to give people a
Right.
way to like say, this is what Superside is, and not keep referring to us as an agency. So we came up with this term called CAS, Creative as a Service. And as I'm sure you'll recognize, like SaaS, it suggests
Hmm.
flexible, agile, in the cloud, blah 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 blah, right? Like modern day. So we were like, okay, there's something here. It's cooking. Let's try to like put it out there, see what kind of feedback we get. And so I started talking to a few customers. Our head of product marketing started talking to a few customers. Our sales reps kind of dropped it here and there. And there was just like one time I was just on a random call with another podcast called This Week in Startups, which is run by Jason Calacanis. And he's a big deal in the startup world, big investor guy, knows a lot about marketing and sales and growth and all this stuff. And he just happened to join that call. It was with his team, but he just joined. And he said, Amrita, tell me what Superside is, because I like to explain things in my own words. I'm not going to read a script. I was like, cool. So I'm like, blah, 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 blah. And I say, like we're creative as a service, like SaaS, we're CAS. And he just loved that so much. And then when I heard his pre-roll, when he did his podcast, plugging Superside, like our little ad in his thing, oh man, it was beautiful. It was so well explained. I was like, this guy just did our marketing for
Yeah.
us. I should probably like send him a gift or something. But no, it just stuck. Like it just, to me, it was just like we were just toying with this idea. And when I heard him say it, I was like, okay, there's something here. And so based on his feedback, customer feedback, batted around, with our CEO, that's the term that was born. So we introduced ourselves as a creative as a service solution. And people are like, what is creative as a service? Then we're like, okay, thank you for the permission. I will now tell you what that is, right? It's a ruse to kind of explain your differentiators and how you stand out from all of the incumbent solutions that they're used to. It's like saying, we're not this. I'll tell you what we are, but we are not this. And it explains that in like 2 seconds.
Right. And that's so helpful. Like you said, if someone gets it, then great. On to, like if this, then that, on to the next step. But if not, like you said, yeah, it's a jumping off point and a shared language from which to do that jumping off as well. No, I think I probably had a similar reaction myself when you said CAS. I kind of sat up, and it's such a great prompt. It's not unlike when we hear brands looking for the I'm the this of that industry, taking some other aspect, known entity. I'm the Nike of aprons or something.
Yeah, yeah. I actually like a example that a lot that like just a colloquial example that I love, is I actually buy a decent amount of vitamin water. That's why I name dropped them earlier. And the thing that I love about vitamin water when they first came out is that they had water in their name. So for people like me who are like not like athletes or wannabe athletes and don't go to the gym every single day, I'm not drinking Gatorade. I don't need those
Right.
electrolytes and whatnot. I've never bought Gatorade in my life because I just didn't see myself as their buyer. But vitamin water and Gatorade are eerily similar, but yet the word water and the fact that it's, I guess vitamin has something to do with it too. It just made me feel like, oh, if I'm going to drink water anyway, I might as well drink this vitamin water, and that's positioning. That's brand.
Yeah.
That's positioning.
Yeah, that is great. And I love the vitamin water example. Speaking of brands that make us smile, it is now time for me, Amrita, to ask you for a brand that has made you smile recently. That's not vitamin water.
That's not vitamin water. Yeah. Man, there's like so much good marketing going on today. I feel like some brands are really turned on. There's a Canadian brand that I particularly love, and I love their story because they're in the, let's just say, underwear market, okay? And it's like pretty saturated. There's like a million underwear brands. Everything from your department store underwear brand to, Jockey and all those guys who've been around for decades to, just like there's so much. And there's like Spanx and this and like going out underwear and stay home underwear and grandma underwear. And this, it's crazy, right? And like, yeah, they launched, I can't remember, but I remember like seeing their growth happen in front of my eyes. So this brand is called Knix, like Knix. They're Canadian. I'm Canadian, so I've observed these things and wanted to shout them out. But they started off kind of with just like comfortable. I think their whole value prop used to be like comfortable underwear that's like affordable and body positive. And a lot of their images and the models that they used were, very real. Like you kind of, if you were like a mom or if you were, I don't know, diabetic or paraplegic or whatever, like you could identify, like those are the kinds of images that they used. And and some of the stuff that they used to talk about on their socials used to be like kind of somewhat serious. And I think that they've grown up a lot. They've learned a lot. So they're still very body positive. They still use, images of women with, all sorts of stuff, like stretch marks, this, that, like, doesn't matter what size you are. So they've kept the core of their brand there, but they're also kind of going into this, like, almost like humorous territory. So they like, I'll often see that they'll leverage like the latest meme or like, when Rihanna did the Super Bowl, they kind of like took like a lot of like cuts of like stuff that she was doing, given that she was like pregnant and still performing on stage. Like it worked so beautifully with their brand, and they just use that brilliantly. And every time I wouldn't say like every single time, but I'd say like a solid like 40-50% of the time, I'm always like following along, nodding my head, perhaps smiling.
I love that. Great example, and love all the different connection points there as well. Amrita, where can folks go to learn more about who you are and what you do?
Who am I?
I didn't mean that to be. It was more of a plug, less of an existential question.
Yeah, I know. I'm just poking fun. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn and Twitter. You can find me with my full name, Amrita Muthur. If you find any other people with my name, they are phonies and doppelgangers. Yeah, there shouldn't be that many people with my name. It's a pretty unique name. But I'm pretty active on LinkedIn, Twitter. And then, of course, you can always go to superside.com as well.
Awesome. Well, we will link up to all of that in our show notes, which folks can always find at onbrandpodcast.com. Amrita, thanks for being on brand with us.
Thank you for having me.
On Brand is part of the Marketing Podcast Network. If you like what you're hearing, if we've made you smile, you can always listen free on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or whatever your favorite platform may be. And please take a moment and rate and review the podcast to help others find the show. Until next week, I'm Nick Westergaard, and I'll see you on the internet.
This podcast is heard along the Marketing Podcast Network. For more great marketing podcasts, visit marketingpodcasts.net.